Good morning, everybody, and welcome to the Rangers Review morning briefing for Monday, the 4th of July. I'm Derek Clark, and I'm joined this morning by Jonny McFarlane. How are we doing, Jonny?
Good, mate. Good. Yeah, pretty poor weather here today, but nevertheless, we're getting used to it in this dreich summer in Glasgow. I can't recall such a crappy summer, but there you go.
Yeah, it's pretty cloudy down here in Warrington as well. The sun is trying to push through, but yeah, it's not the best of days, I've got to admit. And before we talk all things Rangers, folks, just about housekeeping as ever. As you can see, the little ticker below, we've still got that great offer on the website just now. If you subscribe, you get a free 30-day trial. You get full access as well, so you can see if it's for you, and I'm sure you won't regret it. Just £2.99 per month thereafter. And also, as you can see, a logo there, the One Football app. It's the Rangers Review sponsor. It is your one-stop shop for all your footballing needs. You can keep up to date with all the latest goings on from Ibrox, as you can see on your screen. Squad list, lots of fixture details. You can read up on the opposition and what have you. You can keep up to date with all that's going on in Scottish football. And not only that, from across the border as well, down south, Premier League, Championship, League One, and League Two, and you can keep abreast of all the football across the continent as well. You can get notifications to your phone. So many of you downloading it, hearing great things. The good news about that is it's totally free, so it won't cost you a penny, and it's available to iPhone and Android users. Okay, let's talk Rangers, Jonny. Sad news again over the weekend. Another legend has departed us. Andy Gorham sadly passing away after a short battle with cancer, just 58 years old. He was only diagnosed with the disease in April of this year. I know you did an interview with Ian King, who wrote his biography on YouTube. Folks, you can check it out on the Rangers Review site. Another huge loss. We all knew it was coming, Jonny, but at the same time, it's still terrible to hear, isn't it? He was such an icon of the football club.
Yeah, absolutely. Personally, for me, this has been quite a difficult one, because Andy Gorham was my hero growing up. Derek, I was a goalie, and there was no one better to watch and learn from than Andy, who was just an absolute sensation. Very few keepers have had the kind of personality and strength of character that was so obvious on the pitch that Andy possessed, and the ability just to make incredible saves. Some of the stuff that people will have seen many times before, but some younger people might be seeing for the first time that have been doing the rounds. Really shows you the quality the guy had. The games that stick out in my mind are the same as everyone else's, I suppose. The unbelievable save against Celtic in the 3-3 game. I think it was 96. Might have been earlier than that. Dates are always my bête noire. Yeah. But that was an incredible save. You've got the game against Aberdeen, where he pulled off, I think, 3 world-class saves in the first half, and then another right at the death when he made a rare mistake and allowed the ball to spill under him, but was quick enough and had the presence of mind enough to turn around and grab the ball off the line. But his performance in that game overall was up there with the very best of his career. And it was such an important game in February 1993 against such a good Aberdeen side who were pushing for all 3 trophies in Scottish football. Had Scott Booth and Ian Jess up front, who are absolutely electric at that time, and just young kids coming through and really energising Aberdeen as a club. So, yeah, there's so many memories and so many moments throughout his career. And, you know, talking to Ian King yesterday, such a fascinating guy. We always say that while footballers are very much more serious in terms of their athletic prowess nowadays, they're not the same kind of characters. Those guys are from a different era now, and Andy was definitely one of those. Just an incredibly interesting life, full of event and intrigue. But the key thing about Andy Gorham, and it's the same with all these legendary players, the amount of joy that they've given to people over their lives and their careers is immense, and that's an incredible legacy. And that's why when you pass on and you've been a great Rangers player, you are essentially immortal. So that's the sort of silver line on such sad news and such a sad time, because Andy will never be forgotten, and for me will always be the greatest keeper. There'll never be another Andy Gorham. I know a lot of people talk about Alan McGregor, and I think Alan McGregor's more than earned his place in the pantheon of Rangers greats. But for a guy of my age, it's just unquestionable that at his peak, Andy Gorham is the Rangers goalie. He is the goalie after all, and that'll never change.
Yeah, it's interesting. I spoke to Lionel Charbonnier recently, folks. It's another interview you can see on the website, and he was talking about Gorham at the time when he joined Rangers. He said when he arrived and took over from Andy Gorham, it was a big challenge for me. I never wanted to be the new Gorham. He was one of the best goalkeepers, maybe the best goalkeeper for Rangers. He said that he was the goalie, and after they said he was, Lionel Charbonnier was le goalie. So yeah, he was held in really high regard. Ali McCoy's with quite an emotional tribute this morning on the TalkSport radio station. He said Andy got the news 10 weeks ago that he'd been diagnosed with incurable cancer. He was given 6 months. The speed of it has been absolutely frightening. Nice words. He said that, however, having gone to see him on a regular basis, first of all at the hospital in Wishaw, East Kilbride, eventually the hospice in Airdrie. First of all, I'd like to thank everybody who looked after Andy. These girls and guys in these places are absolutely remarkable with the job that they do. He said he was there on Saturday morning with Bomber Brown. The two of us were at his side when he passed with his son Danny, his ex-wife Miriam, and he said it was absolutely tragic. He says we're all taking great courage from the fact his bravery was absolutely incredible. I kept coming back saying to the boys when I was on the phone to them, whoever it may be, I thought the goalie was actually in a state of shock with the news, which would be understandable, but he actually wasn't in a state of shock. It was just remarkable bravery that I've never seen before in my life. You can see that the full tribute on our website, folks, as well, and from Ali McCoy. It really is touching, and it's been a really tough 8 months or so, Jonny, hasn't it? We've lost, of course, Walter, and then Jimmy Bell suddenly passed as well. Davy Wilson, of course, had his funeral on Friday. Lost a number of great Rangers over the last few months. It makes you stop and think just how much they mean to the supporters and what have you. That you see that this tribute's been laid, scarves and tops been laid at the gates at Ibrox again. You can go and see for yourself, folk. But these are absolute pillars of the history of the football club, aren't they? So it's another real sad loss.
Yeah, and 58, Derek, it's just really no age at all. You know, it's a horribly young age to die in this day and age, where, you know, in 2022, where most people are sort of expected to live through to their 80s now. In Scotland, it's really unfortunate to have lost Andy at that stage in his life. He deserved to have so much longer to spend time with his family and his friends, and I think that's why it's particularly emotional, because you know, he's just still a young man, and this is just such a cruel disease that he's had. I think there's everyone watching this will have been touched by it in their own lives. And it is something that obviously we as a society must try and do much more to try and help, because it really is a scourge, and it has taken so many people away from us. And just generally, Derek, you know, having lost Walter Smith and also Jimmy Bell, amongst some of perhaps the older crew of legends from previous generations, it has been a really sad period of time for the Rangers family, and so much tumult with these kind of people passing away. It's a really sad period.
Yeah, as Ian rightly points out, he was a great cricketer, and I loved the little tribute from Mike Atherton, no less, on covering the England game the other day there, paying tribute to Andy. They both played with each other at Lancashire as well. So, multi-talented was Andy. Lots of tributes coming into him. He really was, as you mentioned, the club's greatest ever goalkeeper. I think it's undeniable. Like you say, Jonny, I think Alan McGregor has entered that discussion now, which is a testament to him. Even he had a lovely little message on his Instagram page as well, a picture of him in Gorham as well. I think he said something like, it's no age, and it certainly isn't. It's we've got to remember he's got family and what have you, and it's so sad that he's been taken from us in such a cruel fashion. But keep the comments coming in, folks. We'll transition on. I know it's difficult, but in terms of the here and now, Jonny, of course, we are in the summer transfer window. But murmurings going on with regards to Joe Aribo. Southampton apparently interested in him. I think that the general mood music is that Aribo is likely to head for pastures new. In terms of Southampton, would that be a decent location for him, do you reckon?
Yeah, I think so. I think Aribo would prefer to go back to the real south of England. So when you see links with Nottingham Forest and things like that, I think, of course, he might be interested in making a move to a Premier League club, obviously. But I think he's a home bird and would like to return back to London ultimately. Time will tell us to see how firm these rumours are. I've always been led to believe that Crystal Palace is the most likely destination for Joe Aribo, Derek. If Southampton come in and make it a bidding war for his services, all the better for Rangers' point of view. It's one of those whereby the more teams that come in, the better it is for the club, and the closer you get to I think the 10 million that he would be likely to go for. So I think if you're asking me about who's the player most likely to leave in the Rangers squad at the moment for big money, I'd say it's Joe Aribo. So it'll be very, very interesting to see in the next week or so how that progresses. But this is just a general point about about Scottish football, but wider as well. There's not a lot of kind of movement going on in terms of that kind of bracket that we would expect of sort of between 10 and 30 million. Now, obviously in Scottish football we expect that because that's not the level that teams are really operating in. But in terms of player sales, what you'd be looking to bring in for the kind of quality that Rangers have in the squad, it doesn't seem to be as active as what you would have hoped. And you wonder how much of this is this remaining carryover, hangover, however you want to describe it, from COVID. And that's potentially going to be very difficult. Personally, Derek, I'm taking this transfer window much more fluid, I think, in terms of my thought process about it than I was 6 months ago, where I was absolutely certain that Aribo, Kent and Morelos would go and would have to go.
Yeah.
Now I'm starting to think that perhaps my thinking hadn't really switched into a more modern gear, and maybe this is just the way of it now for football. Maybe we're going to see a lot more free transfers. Maybe the transfer fees that you do pay are going to have to be considered as over the period of the contract, and you're securing somebody over the period of a contract. And the thing is you'll still benefit on the other end, because while you lose out on that transfer fee, you're going to be able to pick up players for nothing who are really good quality.
Yeah,
it's a slightly worrying situation given the requirements for Rangers to have that fourth pillar of their financial strategy, a player trading model. And credit to the club for getting the money they did for Nathan Patterson. But if you're not really, really engaged in that Premier League market, outside of that, there hasn't been a lot going on, has there? Outside of that real elite market, the top clubs. I think Barcelona are doing a little bit. Bayern Munich are doing a decent amount of business, but the next rungs down, where perhaps Rangers players would be viewed as attractive assets. It seems to me like it might be a little bit bunged up, Derek, just from an outsider looking in.
Yeah. Simple kind of man says, Aribo goes to Crystal Palace. Selhurst Park will feel like playing at a community centre compared to Ibrox. Listen, there's no doubt Joe Aribo's not going to go to a bigger club than Rangers, but he'll be going to a bigger league, a more attractive league. Of that, there's no doubt, and you can't decry him that. I don't think Rangers will get good service out of Joe Aribo over the years. So there was an interesting point. There was Peter Lawrence who's slightly concerned, Jonny. He says, are you guys concerned at all about how slowly this window is taking to bring in players? Sort of touches on what you were saying. Do you think that maybe Rangers need one player to go in the sort of domino effect to get things sort of moving in the right direction? Is that what we're waiting on, do you reckon?
I think it's very, very complicated. I've got to be honest. I think it's multifaceted. Yeah. I think, are you wanting to push these players out the door before a Champions League qualifiers? You know, exactly. It's like, say you go into a Champions League qualifier against Monaco and you've pushed all three of these players out the door. There's an argument that's kind of unnecessary. I think this could run and run.
Yeah.
Right to the end of the window. And I think Rangers will want to maximise the players that they have to get them through these two stages. It's going back to the well again, but you can't force players out, you know, especially good ones.
Yeah.
If people aren't there saying, you know, give me Joe Aribo, give me Ryan Kent, give me Alfredo Morelos, what are you going to do as a club? You know, if teams are coming in and saying, here's 3 million, here's 4 million, well, you're not going to accept that. So I'm not saying that's happened, by the way. I don't think it has happened.
Yeah.
But the Rangers' hands are tied in terms of people coming in for their players. It's as simple as that. The club didn't qualify for the Champions League. If it had qualified for the Champions League, as in the group stage, then this would be, I think, a totally different situation. But given that they haven't, they have to be careful. And people talk about the money that was made last year, and that's absolutely true. But Rangers would have spent a lot. They would have put out a lot of bonuses. I don't think that there's a lot of money swirling around. You know, that the club has made losses for a long time. So on top of the things like Edmondson House, there's significant outlays. You look at the training centre now, it's completely night and day compared to what it was. The infrastructure of the club's been rebuilt. And we have a very strong squad, as John's saying there. It's going to be interesting to see how it pans out. I think there needs to be patience. I know it's difficult because, yes, it's now getting to the time. You're talking 4th of July. We're in a slightly different scenario than we were 2 weeks ago when we're telling people to have patience. I think that was more than fair enough. But now they're on the trip today to go out to their training camp. You really do want players at that training camp. It doesn't look like there's going to be many, if any. And you know, that's not ideal. But the Čolak thing, that's still ongoing, Derek.
Yeah.
The situation as is. Giovanni Van Bronckhorst wants this player. It's just a case of being patient and hoping that PAOK get their man as quickly as possible. And once that happens, then the deal just goes through. So you can understand what they're thinking, though. They've got one striker with Čolak as the reserve. If Čolak goes and then the striker gets a cruciate ligament in the next training session, then they're in deep trouble. So I can totally understand their position, but it's not ideal because you would want him in to sort of show the fans that there is some movement taking place and that the club have got their ducks in a row, as it were, for this transfer window. If I was being slightly critical, Derek, I would say that I'm surprised that there hasn't been more use of the Bosman market. You know, John Souttar, I think, is a great signing. If you look at his metrics, if you use your eye test and watch him, he looks to me like a player that's got levels to go up, and I think he'll be a really good signing. I think it's easy for us to look at Scottish players and sort of say, nah, you know, he's not good enough. I've heard a lot of this. There was rumours flying around on Twitter the other night about Lewis Ferguson, Derek. I think if you get Lewis Ferguson for the price that people are talking about, and I'm sure this price is wrong, by the way, but if you're talking about £1.52 million for Lewis Ferguson, I'd take him.
Would you go above that? Would you go above £2 million though, Johnny? I've seen.
No, I wouldn't.
Yeah.
No.
That's where I would draw the line.
So would I, but I think at that deal he's a good player. He's had loads and loads of games. He's only 22 years old. I think he would be better around better players. He's got energy. He's got drive. I'm not saying he's the same quality as his uncle, obviously, but I think he would be a good addition and give some energy and physicality to the midfield. And, you know, I don't think Lewis Ferguson is any worse than Ryan Jack was when he pitched through the doors. Absolutely not. No. I think he's a better player than Ryan Jack was, to be honest. So I think he's got more scope to improve. But getting back to Souttar, I think Souttar is one of those players that people are underestimating because he's from Hearts, he's from the Scottish League. but I think he'll be a really, really good signing for Rangers if he can stay fit.
Yeah.
And I would have liked to have seen the club have a few more of these kind of deals tied up in terms of, you look at the success of Sakala and Lundstrom now, we've all got our feelings about Sakala, but there's no doubt he delivered over the course of the season. And John Lundstrom, we don't even need to talk about that really. And those were two Bosmans brought in early, allows you to get them as part of the squad. I know it's more difficult for the club to sort of do these deals when you're in the latter stages of a European competition, but I think that would have been a good place to kind of solidify the squad with a few frees. But I suppose it just depends on what's available, what Gio's looking for, and it might be there was no one on the market that the manager thought was suitable. It's obviously leaving Rangers in a situation where they're asking this team to go to the well, and you can see the potential problems with that, because we know from the way Celtic were run over the years, and they ran a very similar ship to how Rangers are running this one, which is, they were quite tentative in the transfer market ahead of European qualifiers, because you just don't know what you're budgeting for, and that's totally understandable.
Yeah.
But then it creates this sort of narrative of, you're not speculating to accumulate. And of course they're not speculating to accumulate. That's not a wise thing to do. But for a football fan who just loves their team and wants to see the team succeed and progress, they're not interested in the bottom line or the balance sheet. They're interested in success on the pitch, and they've just seen their team get to a Europa League final. They want to taste more of that. And that's where it puts pressure on the club if you've not kind of got some signings teed up, even if they were Bosman signings. We'll see how it pans out.
Yeah. When you mentioned Sakala there, a story that emerged over the weekend, Jonny, was that Auxerre in France were apparently interested in taking him on loan, which I can't imagine Rangers would agree to. Could you see him moving out the door possibly to Fashion Sakala? We've talked about him at length on a number of shows, of course, how we all know he's raw, he's a bit of an impact player, he's a bit of a joker in the pack. You don't know what he's going to do. But could you see him maybe being shipped out? I can't see him heading out on loan. If he was to move, I think it would have to be for a fee.
Yeah, Fashion Sakala has delivered numbers, and there's a few players on Rangers books that could do with taking a leaf out of his book, because although he has been a little bit up and down at times, you can't say that when he's been given an opportunity that he hasn't been able to grab goals and cause chaos.
Yeah.
So, I think Sakala is someone that you would definitely want to keep around the place. He's also someone you would want to finesse. He's also someone that you would want to improve and be able to.
Just wonder if he can, if the coaching staff can improve him at that age now, where what is he, 25 years of age now? Is that just what you're going to get with Sakala, do you think? Is that
the manager will have to make a decision on that, and perhaps that'll be the decision, and perhaps then it'll be looking to get him on. But I wouldn't agree with that, Derek. I mean, do you agree with it? Would you? I
don't know. They say that peak years are possibly the sort of mid to late 20s, isn't it? He's just heading into those peak years. I think you know what you're going to get with Fashion Sakala. I think we've seen it at Parkhead, of course, that game at the tail end of the season. He was causing them all sorts of problems, but I think starting a game, I think we need to see more, of course. There's no doubt about it. Rangers need more from him in terms of quality. We touched on the Europa League final where he just looked like a duck out of water, and when he came on in that final, of course, he was substituted again. I think that was more to do with, it was more to do with bringing on penalty takers to hit penalties rather as opposed to how he was getting on. But I don't think you could have any arguments about being hauled off again. I just think Rangers need a bit more quality. But as Julie says, can Roy Mackay work his magic on Sakala? Listen, he'll be working with him every day, and he does do so. I've asked Sakala this, and he says he gets videos from Mackay, and he's with him a lot of the time. But it's whether he's taking that information on.
I'd give him one more season, Derek. And it might be in 6 months' time we're going, we need to get Fashion Sakala out on loan somewhere because it's clear it's not going to work. And that might be the case, but I think it's worth giving him a little bit more time to see what he can deliver. As I say, the numbers were excellent. The finesse is maybe not where it needs to be, but sometimes you just need somebody who can come on who's got a goal threat, and he's definitely got that from wide and through the middle. If you're going up against a team like Celtic, or if you're going up against a European side, it's very handy to be able to turn to the bench and say, I'm going to put someone on that's got absolutely searing pace. Now, as Alan McCoy said, it's sometimes you wonder whether or not he knows what to do with it, and that's a separate argument. But I like Sakala. I've said it over and over again. He's frustrating, but I think there's enough there that you can say he deserves another season. It might be Giovanni Van Bronckhorst disagrees with that. I don't know if like Auxerre would be a great move for him. Are they not? Did they not have a really bad time of it recently? I'm sure they got relegated very, very recently. If not this season, gone season before that.
They're in League One, so
they must have come back up.
Yeah,
third of 20 promoted. They got promoted via the playoffs, so they're back in League One. So I mean,
it'd still be a good move. League One's that is a good club to go to. If he was to move on, it's a good club. Yeah.
No, I mean, Auxerre are one of the sort of traditional big names of French football. There's no doubt about that. And as Rangers will testify, going back a couple of decades to some pretty ropey results against them. But Sakala, for me, has the ability to cause problems in the Scottish Premiership, and we need more players, I think, from a Rangers point of view, that can actually do that.
Yeah, a good point that John makes. I think I must say I much prefer Sakala on the left-hand side, but there's a problem that Ryan Kent occupies that role. So therein lies a problem with regards to that. I think that'll do us there, folks. Thanks for everyone interacting with the show as ever. It is greatly appreciated. Just a reminder of our offer we've got on the website just now. You can see in the ticker below. If you head over to rangersreview.co.uk/subscribe, you can subscribe now. Totally free. You get the first 30 days absolutely free. Won't cost you a penny. It's just £2.99 per month thereafter. So it's an absolute bargain. So do go and check it out. We'll be back again tomorrow. But until then, enjoy the rest of your Monday.